The streets were quiet, bathed in the dim glow of streetlights. The occasional car sped past, but for the most part, the city was asleep. Keanu Reeves had been driving for hours, enjoying the stillness of the night, when his fuel gauge signaled that he needed to stop. Up ahead, a small, isolated gas station appeared, its flickering neon sign casting a weak glow onto the pavement. He pulled into the lot, the tires crunching softly against the gravel. As he stepped out, the cool night air greeted him, carrying the faint scent of gasoline and asphalt. Through the window of the small convenience store, he saw a young woman working behind the counter. She looked tired, exhausted, even, her shoulders slightly slumped as she bent down to pick up a heavy crate of bottled drinks. It was then that Keanu noticed the swell of her belly. She was pregnant, his brow furrowed. Why was she working this late, all alone, in her condition? Pushing open the door, he stepped inside, and the small bell above the entrance chimed. The woman, whose name tag read, Elena, barely glanced up at first. She was busy stocking a lower shelf, her movements slow and deliberate, as if each one took more effort than it should. Keanu approached the counter, setting down a bottle of water. "Long night?" he asked casually, his voice gentle. Elena sighed as she straightened up, finally making eye contact. Her tired eyes widened slightly in recognition. "Oh my God," she muttered under her breath. "You're..." Keanu lifted a hand playfully, smiling. "Just a guy buying water," he said. She let out a soft chuckle, shaking her head. "Yeah, a guy who's in movies. Big ones." He laughed. "You caught me." Then his expression softened. "How far along are you?" 7 months, she replied, placing a hand on her belly. "It's been a tough few weeks, but I have to keep working." Keanu's smile faded slightly. Something in her voice told him there was more to the story. And at that moment, he decided, he wasn't just going to walk away. Keanu watched as Elena shifted uncomfortably, rubbing her lower back. She was clearly exhausted, yet here she was, working through the night. His curiosity grew. "You're 7 months along and still working this late?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Elena exhaled, giving a small, tired smile. "Yeah, bills don't pay themselves." She motioned toward the register. "And my boss doesn't exactly believe in maternity leave." Keanu frowned. There was something in her tone. Resignation, maybe even fear. "Do you have anyone to help you?" he asked. She hesitated before shaking her head. "No, it's just me and my baby now." Keanu leaned on the counter, sensing there was more to her story. He didn't push, but his quiet presence encouraged her to continue. "My fiancé left when he found out I was pregnant," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Said he wasn't ready to be a father. Just packed his bags and disappeared." Keanu's jaw clenched. He hated hearing stories like this, people abandoning their loved ones when they needed them most. Elena let out a soft chuckle, though there was no humor in it. "And then my landlord raised my rent last month. So, here I am. Working every shift I can get, trying to save up before the baby comes." She shrugged, as if trying to make light of it. "Not exactly the dream, huh?" Keanu's heart tightened. She was struggling, working tirelessly, yet she refused to let self-pity consume her. He glanced around the empty store. "Doesn't seem like a safe place for you to be alone this late." Elena nodded. "Yeah, I know. Sometimes I get drunk customers or creeps hanging around, but I can't afford to quit. My boss doesn't care as long as the register keeps ringing." Keanu's eyes darkened. The idea of her being in danger didn't sit right with him. Elena sighed and forced a smile. "But hey, I get to meet famous actors randomly, so that's a plus." Keanu chuckled, but inside, he was thinking. He wasn't just going to let this go. Something had to be done. And he was going to do it. Keanu stood there, absorbing every word Elena had just said. A pregnant woman, abandoned, working dangerous night shifts just to survive. There was something deeply wrong about this. Elena, sensing his concern, waved a dismissive hand. "Don't look so guilty," she said playfully. "It's not like you can magically fix my life." But Keanu didn't smile. What if he could? He watched as she struggled to pick up another heavy box, her breath hitching slightly as she adjusted the weight. Without thinking, Keanu stepped forward. "Here, let me get that." Elena blinked in surprise. "Wait, what?" No, you don't have to. But Keanu had already lifted the box effortlessly, placing it on the shelf with ease. For a man who performed his own stunts, lifting a crate of bottled drinks was nothing. Elena shook her head in disbelief. I can't believe this. I have John Wick stocking shelves for me. Keanu grinned. Well, John Wick does believe in helping people. She laughed, but Keanu noticed how she subtly leaned against the counter, her hands on her lower back. She was in pain, even if she didn't want to admit it. You shouldn't be doing this, he said, his voice quieter now. You need rest. Elena sighed, looking down at her stomach. Yeah, well, rest doesn't pay the bills. A silence stretched between them. Keanu's mind was already made up. He reached into his pocket, pulling out his wallet. Carefully, he counted out a thick stack of bills and placed them on the counter. Elena's eyes widened. Wait, what are you doing? Consider it an early baby gift, Keanu said simply. Elena shook her head, pushing the money back toward him. I can't take this. I don't take handouts. Keanu smiled gently. It's not a handout. It's a thank you. Elena looked confused. For what? For reminding me that strength isn't just about what you can lift. It's about how much you can endure. She stared at him, speechless. Keanu Reeves had just called her strong. But Keanu wasn't done yet. Because this was only the beginning of what he had planned. Elena stood frozen, staring at the stack of cash in front of her. It was more money than she had seen in months. I can't take this, she stammered. It's too much. Keanu leaned against the counter, his expression calm yet firm. You said you don't take handouts. Fine, consider it payment. Elena narrowed her eyes. Payment for what? Keanu smiled. For the lesson you just gave me. You reminded me that real strength isn't about fighting or making movies. It's about perseverance. And that's worth a lot. She hesitated. Something about the way he spoke made her feel like she actually deserved this. Still, she shook her head. I appreciate it, but I can't just accept money from a stranger. Keanu exhaled, thinking for a moment. Then, a new idea sparked in his mind. What if it wasn't a gift? Elena gave him a skeptical look. What do you mean? He grinned. I have a few friends who own businesses, restaurants, bookstores, even production companies. I bet I could help you find something safer, something that lets you rest and still take care of your baby. Elena's eyes widened. You'd help me get a job. Keanu nodded. Something better than this. Something where you won't have to stand for hours at night, lifting heavy things. Something where you're treated with respect. Elena bit her lip. And if I say no? Keanu shrugged. Then I'll respect that too. But I want you to know you have options. Tears welled in Elena's eyes. For the first time in months, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel, hope. No one's ever done something like this for me before, she whispered. Keanu smiled. Maybe it's time someone did. Elena hesitated for only a second longer before finally nodding. Okay. I'll think about it. Keanu grinned. That's all I ask. But in his heart, he knew, this was just the beginning of something bigger. Because when Keanu Reeves decided to help, he didn't do it halfway. The next morning, Elena woke up feeling something unfamiliar, hope. For months, her life had been a relentless cycle of exhaustion and survival. But after meeting Keanu Reeves, things felt different. For the first time, she had a real choice. She stared at the small stack of cash he had left her. It wasn't just money, it was a lifeline. But more than that, it was proof that someone believed in her. Later that day, her phone buzzed. It was a number she didn't recognize. Hesitantly, she answered. Elena, it's Keanu. She blinked. He actually called. Hey, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. I didn't expect to hear from you. Keanu chuckled. I meant what I said. I made a few calls, and I have some options for you. There's a cafe downtown looking for a manager, good pay, flexible hours. And a friend of mine runs a publishing house. They need an assistant, and they're open to remote work. Elena's breath caught. Remote work? You mean, I could stay home with my baby? That's right, Keanu said warmly. No more late nights at a gas station. No more heavy lifting. Just a real job with real support. Tears welled in Elena's eyes. This wasn't just help. It was a second chance. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say yes, Keanu said simply. And for the first time in a long time, she did. Months later, Elena sat in her small but cozy apartment, rocking her newborn daughter in her arms. She wasn't struggling through night shifts anymore. She had taken the publishing job, working from home, finally doing something she loved. Her life had changed because one stranger had seen her, truly seen her, and decided to help. She looked down at her baby and whispered, "There are good people in this world, little one. And one of them saved us." Just then, her phone buzzed. A message from Keanu. "Hope you and the little one are doing great. Let's catch up soon. Coffee's on me." Elena smiled. Because sometimes, kindness from a stranger can change everything.